A lot of good news for the 49ers at practice today. Several players, including Mykel Williams and CJ West, back out on the field, and Brian Robinson Jr. That's him doing push-ups and getting involved for the first time. He said that he and Christian McCaffrey, the goal is to be the best running back duo in the league. There you can see Brian Robinson Jr. wearing the 30 jersey for the 49ers. Muscular guy. Spoke at his first press conference. Here's a look at the defensive line. You can see Mykel Williams, 98, back there for the 49ers. Alfred Collins, by the way, thought that he played his best game for San Francisco. Not surprising. He's had 3 preseason games now to really get used to the leverage he's going to be asked to play with at the NFL level. There is CJ West working with Greg Scruggs. That's a former Seahawks defensive lineman, 49ers assistant D-line coach. Scruggs coaching up CJ West, who takes off here with Mykel Williams. I love this shot a day ahead of the 53-man roster cut down. Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, and you can see Mac Jones back at practice with the sleeve on his left knee. That's Richie Grant, also back out at practice today, the safety for the 49ers. This is the receiver room. You'll notice no Juwan Jennings. We were wondering if maybe it would happen today, but no Juwan Jennings at practice for the 49ers. However, Sky Moore had a chance to practice in a little more length for the 49ers today, wearing that number 6 jersey for San Francisco. 49ers were happy with Sky's first performance. It was a crash course. Malik Turner, number 7, was actually helping Moore line up on Saturday against the Chargers. Roster moves for the 49ers today. It was busy, as I said. They returned several players. Mykel Williams, CJ West, Ben Barch was back out at practice wearing a brace on that right elbow. Richie Grant, as you saw. Tatum Bethune missed the game with some back soreness, but the linebacker was out there for the 49ers, and Mac Jones. The first roster cuts have happened. Tanner Mordecai and Carter Bradley both waived with injury designations. Remember, they were both hobbled during the game on Saturday, so if they are not claimed, they'll revert to the 49ers injured reserve list tomorrow. But obviously San Francisco planning on someone else for that QB3 spot. Curtis Rourke maybe down the pipeline. I don't think week 1. He's still going to be on NFI coming off of the torn ACL. But the 49ers might sign another quarterback for the practice squad to begin this 2025 regular season. Shaquille Brown, defensive tackle, Jalen Allen, defensive end, both waived. Keyshawn Vaughn, the running back, released. The difference between a waiver and a release is that a vested veteran can go ahead and sign with another team immediately. Someone who is waived has to actually pass through waivers. Those are guys on their rookie contracts or typically in their first 4 years in the NFL. And Isaiah Prince placed on injured reserve. That's the veteran offensive tackle, got hurt during the game on Saturday. So that's 6 spots freed up from the 90-man roster. 49ers go from 90 to 84. By tomorrow at 1 o'clock, they've got to go from 84 down to 53. So 31 cuts still must be made by the 49ers to finish this roster cut down. It's about to become very, very busy. How about we go through everything that happened at practice today? It was a light day for the 49ers. The ones didn't get any work or hardly any work on Saturday. Some of those guys played, but the main characters did not. So the 49ers wanted to make sure that the layoff for them was not too long because they don't have practice tomorrow due to the cut down. So they got the first stringers out there and they were very, very active today. Purdy to Ricky Pearsall, corner out, opened up practice, and we saw a lot of Purdy to George Kittle. That was particularly pretty. Purdy to Kittle in the end zone, red zone work, saw George Kittle left-handed, one-handed catch, and the guy is right-handed, so he's having such a good training camp. George looks like he's in the best shape that I've ever seen him. This is going to be the age 32 season for George Kittle, and he's looking as good and as fast as ever. There was a play, though, where Marquise Siegel was able to get a hand on a football. This was a deeper corner out and knock it away. Siegel looks like he's going to be one of the 49ers' first-team safeties to begin this season. It was Siegel and Pinnock back there at the safety spot. So one George Kittle potential completion derailed, and Marquise Siegel deserved a little bit of credit near the sideline, but Jason Pinnock, who was covering George on that little back pylon throw where he made the one-handed catch, poor Jason Pinnock didn't have a chance on that one. Purdy put that football right where only George Kittle could get it, and that left-handed catch sealed the job for the future Hall of Famer, the veteran, number 85. The first run of Brian Robinson Jr.'s 49ers practice career was an outside zone to the right. And when asked if he's ready to run this 49er system, Robinson said that that's his specialty. You watch his tape, I mean, he is a good burst guy, so you could see him fitting into a one-cut system well. I mean, over the past 3 years, he's run some of that with Washington, nearly 800 yards in each of his 3 seasons, consistently at about 4 yards a carry, and he's got 65 catches under his belt. You know, I said it before, I'll say it again, he's a better receiver than Jordan Mason. 49ers have him about 40% of the cost of Jordan Mason because Washington's picking up $1.25 million of his salary. And the 49ers were also able to get Marquise Siegel in the draft because of that Mason trade. So you profit. Robinson, Mason, cap savings because he's cheaper than Mason, and you know, it's one of those things that just took a longer time to come to full fruition. And I'm sure the 49ers weren't planning specifically to get Brian Robinson back when they did trade Jordan Mason away to the Minnesota Vikings, but sound process gives you a good chance of very sound results, and I think the 49ers are happy with his results when it comes to Brian Robinson. Luke Gifford, 49ers third-team linebacker. I mean, today we saw how the ones were aligned, and that it just solidified what I have on my depth chart. Tomorrow when the 49ers 53-man roster cutdown happens, you're going to be able to follow live, and you're going to be able to see that depth chart, and you're going to be able to see me making the moves as we get the news coming in. And, you know, I've got that thing all tidied up now because I've watched this 49ers team for over a month of camp and the preseason, and I could tell you a couple things. It's Marquise Siegel and Jason Pinnock who seem to be the preferred healthy options at safety. It's Luke Gifford who appears to be the preferred healthy option at the third linebacker spot. That doesn't mean that it won't change, that somebody like Nick Martin or Tatum Bethune can't make a move, but that's where the 49ers are right now, and that's what I noted. I also noted that Robert Beal Jr. is taking a heck of a lot of first-team snaps. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Robert is going to make this team. The 49ers could also try to be getting a last look at the bubble of this defensive line, and I'm super intrigued by Trevis Gibson. I'm very intrigued by Sebastian Valdez. I get it, he's a different position, but numbers are numbers, and the 49ers have to fit these guys onto their roster. Valdez was working in with the ones as well today, so he's obviously in heavy candidacy to make this 53-man roster. We just have to see how the 49ers operate the numbers, and the cut down has begun. Again, 6 players today removed from the 90, and the 49ers down to 84, so 31 cuts coming. Nothing today that happened was all too big of a surprise. Remember, I projected 2 quarterbacks to make the 53, so the injury designation waves of both Bradley and Mordecai fit in with that strategy for the 49ers. We didn't expect Keyshawn Vaughn, Shaquille Brown, or Jalen Allen on this roster. We didn't expect Isaiah Prince. So everything has started according to expectation for the 49ers. Left guard, Ben Barch. Right guard, Connor Colby for that first team. Still no Dominic Pooney, who was working off on the side today for the 49ers. He's got a shot for week 1. I mean, the prognosis there has improved markedly over the week since he got hurt on that extra point attempt against the Raiders. So that's good news for the 49ers. For now, though, it's the rookie Colby filling in for him at right guard. And a lot of people wondering about Upton Stout. I was too, and then I saw him working out on the side today, and it seemed that he was moving well. So it's a calf issue for Upton Stout. Remember, Kyle Shanahan said the other day that he thinks that Upton is going to be back out at practice soon. He said the same thing about Mykel Williams, and that ended up happening today. Not quiet for Upton, but based on the way that he was moving, I think that is an arrow up for avoidance of injured reserve for the start of this season. One of the big questions is going to come at that cornerback position. Assuming Upton is healthy and ready to go, do you take 7 at corner? Because I think Chase Lucas has played his way onto this roster. If you take 7, that means you're taking both Luter and Dallas Flowers. And one of the most interesting developments of the game on Saturday was that Lucas played at outside corner for the first time. Had been a slot through the first 2 games, and I thought that maybe the 49ers are gauging their comfort level of carrying only one of Luter or Flowers with all of this so that they can minimize the roster impact here. If Chase Lucas is capable of giving the 49ers good backup reps on the outside, well, then the 49ers would potentially be a little bit more efficient with that roster if they could carry only 6, and that means only one of Luter or Flowers. Nice pass breakup today for Diamador Lenore. Nice to call out his name. That was another one of those red zone plays. Purdy went to Ricky Pearsall and Lenore. It was one of those floating passes. It was a little bit like the one-hander for George Kittle. Similar kind of route into the back corner of the end zone. This one wasn't quite as open, and there just wasn't as much room there. And Lenore definitely skied up to make the nice pass breakup for San Francisco. Now, remember, this was a non-padded practice, so obviously the 49ers taking it easy today, trying to get those first-teamers some work before cut down tomorrow. The team is going to be back out here at practice on Wednesday and Thursday. But on Wednesday, it's going to be a reduced roster by that point. There'll be 70 guys out here, though, because they have to form a practice squad. 17 players are going to be part of that practice squad. So they went from 90 to 84, and they'll be at 70 the next time they take the field. It's going to be 53 plus that 17-man practice squad. Oh, also, Sky Moore made a catch at practice today. This one was against Chase Lucas. Moore was lined up in the slot, broke out Lucas, the slot cornerback for the 49ers, covered Sky Moore to the sideline, and the catch was made for Sky. He didn't have an opportunity to catch a pass at his first practice. Remember, he joined late. He flew in past his physical last week. That was on Thursday before the game. So today, Sky Moore actually had a chance for the 49ers to make a play. Making sure that I've covered absolutely everything. It looks like I have, but wait, we are not done yet. I was on KNBR a little bit earlier this morning. You should have a listen to my full interview on KNBR. We talk a little bit more about the Juwan Jennings situation. Obviously, this was recorded before practice, but not much changed on the front of Juwan Jennings. Was not at practice, so have a listen. This is courtesy KNBR. Everyone have a good day.
David Lombardi, you can read him at sfstandard.com. Good morning, David. How are you, man?
Hey, morning, David.
Good morning. Got my coffee, headed down one-on-one. We're going to be at the facility here in a little bit, and final practice before that cut down tomorrow. So, yeah, it's getting real. Less than 2 weeks until that game against Seattle. But like you guys just said, there's a lot to get sorted before then.
Starting with Juwan Jennings, and your colleague wrote about it, saying that multiple NFL sources have told him the Niners are mulling a move to IR, which would, buy him a roster spot and some time, or I don't know, for lack of a better word, punish Juwan for this sort of stalemate. You tell me, when you read Kawakami's piece, your colleague, and your reporting, do you think that's a possibility? Do you expect Juwan on the practice field? Give us all your thoughts.
Well, remember that he's also dealing with the calf, and I think two things are true at once. There is a contract stalemate going on, and there's also a calf issue, which can be tricky. So a move to IR is only possible if there is some sort of injury. So if you're taking Juwan Jennings at his word that he's not able to practice, maybe that actually is the case right now. So a move to IR would fit that. But here's why Juwan is very incentivized to play. He's got about $3.5 million total in incentives in this contract, tied to, it's like 60 catches, 6 touchdowns, 600 yards. You add that all up, it's $3.5 million. Those are all numbers that he hit last year. So they're makeable incentives, but the second that he hits IR, he would have to miss at least 4 games. All of a sudden, making those incentives is a whole lot murkier. So there's a lot on the line here for Juwan Jennings as far as getting out on the field and playing, and the 49ers understand that. That's the 49ers' contractual leverage in this situation. On top of that, it's also about $37,000 per game for him as a bonus to be on the active roster, which he wouldn't get if he were on injured reserve. So would it hurt the 49ers to put him on IR? Of course. You wouldn't have Jawan Jennings out there for at least 4 games, but it would also hurt Jennings himself. Now, the question is he healthy enough right now to not be on IR? Because all of this is moot if the calf is actually still in a spot that is unable to perform. So Tim said we'll see if we see Jawan Jennings on the practice field on Monday. And if we don't, then it's more of the same holding pattern moving forward.
David, who do you think has more leverage in this situation right now, Jawan Jennings or the 49ers?
Well, I think the 49ers have more, but it's not a 100-0 kind of thing. I think it's, I don't know, 80-20. I mean, Jawan Jennings is under contract, and the 49ers have a lot of incentive control in this situation with those $3.5 million in incentives. Also, the greatest incentive for Jawan Jennings to get out on the field and have a good year is the fact that he's scheduled for free agency in 2026. And if you truly want to cash out in 2026, then you have to play in 2025. That being said, the injury situation that the 49ers have dealt with over the course of training camp has probably tilted some more of the leverage scale in Jawan Jennings' favor. Right now, they're going to be down Jacob Cowing for at least 6 weeks. We already know that Brandon Ayuk is going to start this season on PUP. We know that Jordan Watkins has the high ankle sprain. So it has been a mess in the 49ers receiver room. And for that reason, they're very clearly a team that would benefit from Jawan Jennings being out there in week 1. So that's his leverage. But the 49ers leverage is obviously stronger just due to the contract and the incentives within it.
Just getting my ducks in a row here. This probably needs to be solved by tomorrow. Is that right?
Well, it doesn't have to be, but I think that the 49ers would love to see movement, and they could use, like, the 53-man roster cut down is a great inflection point. We saw this actually help spur things along with Brandon Ayuk last year. He wasn't hurt, but the 49ers put their foot down and said, this needs to be resolved. We're cutting down to our 53-man roster. We need to see him at practice. I don't know if you remember that really stern press conference from Shanahan and Lynch, and then the next day, Brandon Ayuk signed. So they have a couple options here. They can. I don't think that they would want to use one of their return from IR designations. They only have 2 of them for Jawan Jennings. I think they need to use those on Kevin Givens and Jacob Cowing, I think, are the best candidates. But what they can do is have Jawan on the initial 53-man roster, and then they can move him to injured reserve the next day. That's a maneuver that's commonly used around the league, because if he makes the 53, he can then return from injured reserve. You just can't go on injured reserve before the 53-man cut down. So that's an option that would buy the 49ers a little bit more time. I just think in general, even though technically they could do all these roster gymnastics to make this work, I think that in general, they would like to have their 53 set so they can focus on the season. Now, at a certain point, stuff becomes too much of a distraction toward what you're trying to accomplish on the field. And I think the 49ers have drawn that line in the sand this week at the 53-man cut down before with Brandon Ayuk. And I think that it's trending toward that direction again this season with Jawan Jennings.
David, what is your prediction for what that wide receiver room will look like after tomorrow's 53-man cut down?
A lot of it hinges on what they decide to do with Jennings. And I would caution everybody that tomorrow is just a cut down. The next day is usually just as busy in terms of the 49ers re-signing either players to the practice squad or running a lot of the injured reserve maneuvers. So it's going to take the first half of this week to kind of truly flesh out the initial 53-man roster. If Jennings is on it, if he's not going to injured reserve, if the 49ers feel that he's going to be good for week 1 and everything is smooth sailing on that front, then I think they don't have to roster somebody like Robbie Chosen or Isaiah Hodgins. But if Jennings is going to be unavailable for week 1, Ricky Pearsall is your top wideout. Jacob Cowing is obviously not going to be available. Jordan Watkins is a huge question mark. So who's your number 2? Probably Russell Gage. I mean, out of the guys who are healthy right now, I would say that. And then you would have to take one of these veterans who's on the 90 right now, who isn't necessarily projected to make the 53, but I think in a code red scenario, one of them would have to make the 53. And Robbie Chosen impressed throughout training camp. He looks like he's in great shape. He caught passes of various lengths. He made some plays for the 49ers. They seem to be really happy with him. So I'd actually predict that he would make it if there is no Jennings. But Jennings is the big domino here for that, and that's what we'll be watching.
Any thought on Sky Moore? I mean, I know, 3 catches, 19 yards, a drop, some punt returns. Where do you see him in all this?
He's a gadget guy. He's a Ray McLeod, and that's great for the 49ers. They needed a punt kick returner. I think that to me was impressive the other day. He came in, and the very first punt, he moved from the shady part of the field right into the direct sunshine, was staying right up at the sun, had no problem fielding the ball. He's done it in huge games. He had a 29-yard punt return for the Chiefs that set up the game-winning field goal that sent them to the Super Bowl a couple of years back. So he also one of the guys that can do both punt and kick return, which is nice. And then on offense, you see the vision once they get some of these guys back. He's not here to be the X wide receiver. He's here to be. He's got great burst off the line of scrimmage. So there's value in that, even if the football doesn't go to him. He's one of these guys that can create space just because he does have some speed that can clear out on some routes downfield and can also catch some of these shorter passes and take off with the football. I wouldn't expect more than 200 to 300 receiving yards a season for him. That's about where he was in Kansas City over the 2 years that he was healthy. But just think back to how the 49ers used Ray McLeod, and I think that's how they're going to use Sky Moore.
Sky Moore was not the only player that the 49ers traded for last week. They brought in Brian Robinson also. So, David, what was your breakdown on that trade and the role you think he's going to play in Kyle's offense?
Well, this is a much more prominent offensive role. Kyle came out and said this is running back 2 when he was first asked about Brian Robinson, and it makes sense. The guy has been near 800 rushing yards a season in all 3 of his NFL years. But on top of that, he's a much more effective receiver out of the backfield than Jordan Mason, which is why I would argue that this seems like an upgrade for the 49ers at running back too, because he just fits their system better than Mason did. Also, they need short yardage right now, and that was a big problem last year, and that's an area where Brian Robinson is definitely above average. So he brings a short yardage punch, a really downhill kind of guy. He's 228 pounds, and he runs like he's 228 pounds at 6'1", kind of like Sky Moore, similar metrics in that he doesn't have great agility scores, but he's got a very, very good burst. Right out of the gate, he can move, and I think that the 49ers love that in their running backs, especially for guys who they're going to count on in some short yardage situations. And it turns out that that they're able to acquire Brian Robinson. I know this wasn't the plan, like the grand plan from the start, but if you just look at the business scorecard, he's making 40% of what Jordan Mason is making from the Minnesota Vikings. So they got cheaper for somebody who might fit them better. And they also were able to get a 5th-round pick in the pick swap from trading Jordan Mason away. And that pick turned into Marquise Siegel, who's in line to start for them week 1 at safety. So 49ers gain Brian Robinson and Marquise Siegel, and they lose Jordan Mason while also creating cap space in an offseason where they really need it. I think that's good business from the 49ers.
I felt so too, but my dear friend Mike Silver, and you don't have to answer to what Mike has to say, but he raised a question just for debate purposes. He said that he thinks that the cap isn't really that bad and that Jordan Mason's a better running back than Brian Robinson. And the argument was that, well, if Brian Robinson was that good, why were the Commanders going to cut him? So, I mean, just to kind of answer maybe sort of the cynics out there, David, how do you rebut some of the cynical takes on the trade?
Every team runs a different offense. Every team has different needs around the entire NFL. So one man's trash is another man's treasure. And we've seen this happen over and over again. The Steve Young didn't do anything with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but then he did a lot with the 49ers. That's obviously an extreme example, but that's a very prominent one for 49ers fans. This is a lower profile running back position. And, regardless of whether or not Washington wanted to jettison Brian Robinson Jr., the production is the production. He was a consistent 700 to 800 yards at 4 yards a carry with about 20 catches a season for 3 years with Washington. So he can obviously play. And, the 49ers have a great relationship with Washington. These two teams are not trying to fleece each other. Adam Peters is over there, and I think it was just a business transaction where Washington, they've got some young runners out there who better fit their system, and the 49ers, after losing Mason, really wanted a short yardage guy, and they wanted a short yardage guy who fit with Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey and the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Also the 49ers got Washington to pay a little bit of his salary. So they're paying him $2 million a year, $2.1 million after Washington picked up $1.25 million, and they gave up it's a conditional 6th round pick because they have 2 picks and it's whichever pick is later. So it's not a big investment from the 49ers. Sky Moore came almost for free. The 6-7 pick swap in 2027. So that price is negligible. This price is just slightly higher. So to me, it's just hard to criticize a move that is so low investment. It's like one of those things where it's essentially only upside is possible in this kind of move. Even if they would have cut him, the 49ers just wanted to make sure that they were ahead in line to make sure that they got him.
David, last question for me is about the 53-man cut down tomorrow. There's a couple names in the trenches that I know 49er fans are paying attention to, Sebastian Valdez and Drew Moss. But in your opinion, who are some of the names that you're keeping an eye on the bubble tomorrow?
Well, those are the two that top my list. And, it's going to be really interesting with Drew Moss. He had such a nice block on the Jeff Wilson Jr. touchdown on Saturday night. But he's still a developmental player. He's still working on his pass protection. And I don't, the big thing with this roster is the 49ers have to think about game days now. And what happens if Jake Brendel at that very important center position goes down on a game day? What do you do? Who do you turn to? And this is not the practice squad. This is who do you turn to who's dressed on the 53-man roster? Because you could really hit a catastrophe if you don't have somebody who knows the center position on that roster. And, Drew Moss is projected as a center down the road at the NFL level, but he's a rookie. And, I don't know if he's well-versed enough in all that Kyle wants out of that position. So I think that somebody like Nick Zakelj probably has a leg up over him, even if he hasn't played the guard position as well as Drew Moss over the course of training camp. So it's these kind of things that are going to be really interesting, because I think the 49ers would really love to keep Drew Moss around in the building, at least on the practice squad, but then you're worried that he's going to get poached like a Jarrett Kingston last year. That was the guard that they picked in the 6th round out of USC. So the 49ers have to weigh the risk reward of all this stuff, and they first and foremost have to keep their needs on Sundays in mind now. It's no longer just about long-term development. It's about how do they field a competent roster week in, week out to win games at the NFL level. So I'm watching Moss. I'm watching Sebastian Valdez. There's Robert Beal Jr. played a good game on Saturday. Are they going to take 9 or 10 defensive linemen? Somebody like Trevis Gibson, who's a veteran, I thought that he's looked solid for the 49ers as a defensive end throughout this training camp. Does he sneak in with a spot? Who can they get through to the practice squad? I mean, there's some headaches here, but I think that's what you want, too, at some point. You want a roster that has proven competitive enough throughout training camp to make some decisions difficult on you. And I think that especially the defensive line started blossoming toward the end of camp and preseason health-wise, and it's created some difficult decisions for the 49ers on the back end of the roster.
Tomorrow's the day. And last one, I know we've gone long here, but we haven't even just asked a Jake Moody question. We probably should have. I mean, you said it in your piece, David Lombardi, SF Standard. Nothing's easy with this guy. That's it? We're just going to have to live with that until further notice? Or is the phone line, does John Lynch have that phone in hand ready to make a call to another guy?
I think it's been in hand throughout the entire off season and preseason, and nothing has really happened for the 49ers to truly put the phone down, right? I think that Jake Moody has been on this hot seat, remains on the hot seat, and will remain on the hot seat until he shows true consistency in the regular season. And he flashed his immense talent against the Raiders. He also showed some resilience against the Raiders, bouncing back from the miss to make those 2 kicks in the 59-yarder in the last minute. But then what's frustrated the 49ers so much showed up against the Chargers with the missed extra point. And then I thought even worse, especially based on the reaction from Brant Boyer and Kyle Shanahan on the sideline, was the kickoff that went out of bounds. So, kickers are always a miss away from being replaced in this league. And that's what we said when the 49ers cut Greg Joseph. Just because Joseph's not on the team doesn't mean that he won't have the kicking job tomorrow, right? All you have to do is call Greg Joseph up and he'll fly over to the Bay Area and you can sign him if you need him. And I think that's going to be the case with Jake Moody. I think it's still obviously an unstable commodity, right? But there still is a lot of talent. And I think the 49ers still do believe that with that talent, good things can happen. This is some good trivia for you. Doug Bryan, the former Cal kicker.
Oh, yeah, I covered him.
A long time. Yeah, so the 49ers drafted Doug Bryan in the 3rd round.
Uh-huh.
The last time they won a Super Bowl in 1994, they cut him in 1995, and he turned around and he had a productive career. Maybe it was because they cut him, but whatever it was, he went through the fire as a rookie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he came out the fire a good, consistent kicker in the long haul. And I think the 49ers believe that Jake Moody can follow the similar trajectory. And maybe, I think they believe that he's going through the fire right now, and they're hopeful that the regular season will be him on the other side of the fire and he'll be consistent for them. But if there are signs early in this regular season that that's not the case, I don't think they're be afraid to pull the plug.
Good stuff, David. Comprehensive